All right, looks like we're live. And just make sure everything's going out okay here. Perils of a live stream after all. Okay, sounds okay. Alrighty. So, I saw the 2017 It today. I had watched the 90s version before. The 90s one being pretty rough. But the 2017 one is pretty solid, actually. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Visually, it's much better. A lot of people want to make excuses for the 1991 that it was a TV miniseries. It was on network television. So obviously they had a lot of limitations that an R-rated movie isn't going to have. I'm pretty sure the theatrical movie was rated R. But either way, that a movie isn't going to have, higher budget, more censorship demands on network television, obviously. But still, I mean, I understand it's difficult to work with, but it still doesn't excuse as bad as the 1990 version is. It really doesn't. The 2017 version, however, is pretty solid. I thoroughly enjoyed it. One of the interesting changes, and again, I haven't read the book. What I have heard recently that's pretty interesting, everyone was throwing this in Stephen King's face because Stephen King had some tweet recently where he whined about Trump is sexist or something. So they threw in his face that apparently in the book, after the kids defeat the clown, these like 11-year-old boys run a train on this 11-year-old girl. That's apparently in the book. I don't know if people are exaggerating that or what. I never read the book. But holy shit. There's definitely in the movie here, this current movie, there's definitely some basically all the boys have crushed on this girl. The girl's, I believe, older than them by maybe a couple years. Like I'm thinking they're like 13, she's like 15 in this, if I had to like place them. Or maybe she's like 14, they're like 12, something like that. Like they're all basically, none of them are prepubescent, but they're still kids, they're the little tween gray area-ish. But there's sort of like the two boys in particular are sort of competing for this girl's affections. It's well done, though. I mentioned Big Mouth yesterday, and I said, the idea of looking at, sexually curious tweens isn't something I find offensive. Because, you're kidding yourself if you don't think kids at that age are like that. You're absolutely fucking kidding yourself. And if you weren't sexually curious at that age, it was more an indictment on something being wrong with you. Your hormones were out of whack or something. But yeah, I mean, from about the age of 12, sometimes 11 up, kids are curious about those things. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Obviously, adults need to guide them and keep them from falling into some bad mistakes. But I mean, let's be real. Let's not kid ourselves about human nature. And I see a lot of people on the right seem to want to do that in this regard. That said, though, the subject matter of Big Mouth doesn't bother me. The execution, I think, is incredibly poor. In the 2017 It, the execution's a lot better. It does sort of explore a little bit of that with these kids, but not. It's never the main focus, but it's there. It's obviously there. It's a, driving factor for some of these kids. The other thing I found really interesting, in the original 1990 version, the girl's father is depicted as like this hyper-religious, overprotective, just asswipe. And that kind of character depiction doesn't bother me in and of itself, despite being a religious man, because let's face facts, there are religious people like that. there are religious people that basically use their faith as an excuse to be shitheads. I mean, that's a fact, and shit, I see some of that just in the circles I go around on the internet. That exists. It's not nearly as common as your typical fucking left-wing fedora wants to make it out to be, not by a long shot, but it exists. So I'm not necessarily bothered by a depiction of a character like that. The sheer amount of it, especially within Stephen King's work, can be very obnoxious. But in and of itself, it doesn't bother me. But what I found very interesting is the overprotective, hyper religious, pharisaical asshole of a father in this version is essentially an overprotective father who we strongly hint around has molested this girl on a few occasions. Which I found very interesting because, rather than this one, I don't want to say bad guy because it's not the main bad, but rather than this one antagonist, this one character being portrayed as an asshole religious guy, it's being portrayed as a pedo, which is far more having your finger on the pulse of things that are wrong in the current year. Which I found that really interesting. I found it really refreshing. So yeah, that I thought was a very, very interesting change. The kid actors were all solid. I thought whatever the actress is that plays that young lady, that girl, Bev, I guess was her name. Beverly, I think was her name. She just hands in a fantastic performance. She had the most heavy lifting to do acting wise, and she's just fantastic. The guy playing the clown, I'm not even sure off the top of my head who the hell that is. But it's fantastic. Pennywise, the guy playing Pennywise is just fantastic. Something else I thought that was interesting. By the way, there will be a full-on hour-long dissecting of both of these on Sunday. But something else I found kind of interesting. One of my main complaints in the 2017 one was that, or I'm sorry, in the 1990 one I meant, is that this creature is insanely ill-defined, but not so much in an unknowable supernatural mystery kind of way, as in the people making this didn't know what the fuck this thing was kind of way. In the 1990 version, I got the impression that a lot of what the kids would see were some sort of, and then later the adults would see, was some sort of psychic attack. Like this creature has some manner of telepathy, and he's essentially giving them visions to get them to come onto his home turf where he'd have a better shot at taking them down. And I sort of got that impression with the 2017 movie, although I think it's much better at in some ways it makes the clown's abilities a bit more ambiguous, but in some ways it defines it better. And it's such a hard line to say, how much you need to define it, because you don't need to define it totally, especially with a supernatural creature. If anything, there should be you should kind of have a basic idea of it by the end of it, but blurry around the edges. And something I found interesting was this clown is very clearly psychically manipulating people, but he's also physically attacking them. And as you look back on the movie, you're never quite sure what was real and what was him kind of fucking with you. For instance, there's a scene in there where the bathroom at the girl's house is just covered in blood, and it's depicted in 1991, but it's depicted far better in the 2017. Just blood just erupts and erupts out of the sink. The father doesn't see any of it. But what's interesting is she then has the boys over when the father's not around and shows them the bathroom, and they all see it. And they actually spend a good amount of time cleaning it up. And then later, there was something that was in the bathroom that the father's holding that still has some of the blood on it. And it makes you wonder, like, was the blood ever there? And it was some sort of shared psychic illusion on their part? Or was there some sort of psychic attack that just prevented the father from seeing it? You know, was it real or was it not? In other words, whose perception has been altered there? But yeah, really good stuff. The other thing that, like, the way in the 1990 version, the clown just fucking goes on and on about fucking shit floating. Like, it's gonna float. I'll teach you how to float and float, float. It just, he goes on and on about it to the point where it's like, am I not understanding this? This things floating clearly has way more significance to you than it does to me. I'm really not getting what the fuck you're on about with this. And the 2017 version, he kind of mentions that too, but he's not just fucking constantly just talking about that, you know. And also, when at the very end, you actually see that, like, the bodies in this huge kind of open area of the sewer, the bodies are all floating around as if they were in water, even though it's not water. That's kind of interesting. But yeah, just overall, completely far superior to the 1990 version in basically every way. Um, yeah, it's just damn solid from beginning to end. Um, the bullies are depicted way over the fucking top. Um, and you know, the typical cop, well, the one bully's like that because his dad is mean. Um, but that's just that. It's a typical fucking Stand By Me thing where it's gonna that Stephen King tries to throw into everything. Um, overall, the movie's really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm glad this person sponsored this live stream because I probably wouldn't have bothered to see it otherwise. Um, but I'm glad I did. And all the adult stuff that's in the book and was in the 1990 thing, they're saving that for a sequel, which I think is the proper way to go about it. Oh, and the one thing that really got me, it's right away. You know, there's the little brother of the one guy that goes out with the paper boat, and then the clown is like, "Here, you want it? Take it," and then takes the kid. He grabs the kid initially, and like then his mouth goes all like crazy, like rows of sharp teeth, you know, thing, and bites the kid's arm off. The kid like yanks away, and he's missing a fucking arm, right? And he's sort of crawling away from the sewer grate, and it is so. The movie's not excessively gory by a lot of modern horror movie standards, but what it does show is very, very effective. That scene is very, very. I mean, first of all, it's a little kid, and you're seeing him crawling away, missing an arm. It gets to you. You know what I mean? And there's just utter desperation and fear from the kid. It's very visceral. It's very effective. And then again, you compare that to the 1990 version. It just doesn't work. You know, the 1990, like you can watch a 1990 version and you're barely aware of what the clown ever even does to the kids. Did he scare them to death? Did he drain their life energy out? Did he eat part of them? You never even find, like, oh, you just hear, so the kid was found dead. Like, well, what do you mean? Did he found dead, like mangled, or found dead, or, like, no one knows the cause of death and nothing? Like, and I realize part of that, you can't show a lot of things on network TV, especially back in 1990, but still, there's ways around limitations. I mean, you can't let, you know, more often than not, limitations can be, you know, the source of great creativity, but that's when you actually try to deal with them instead of just whatever. Guess I won't explain nothing. The one thing though, where I would give the opening kind of, Georgie and Pennywise scene, is I thought Tim Curry was a little bit more kind of charming in that. In that, like, I can't picture that kid I can't picture the kid even remotely talking to this thing, and like, he's too creepy in that instance. Where no, he wouldn't. Whereas Tim Curry, I mean, and it was often a detriment in the movie. Tim Curry never was scary. He was just a clown. Somebody making the 1991 thought that a clown was scary in and of itself, and you don't have to distort it at all. Here's just Bozo. People will be scared. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. But the one line I liked from Tim Curry when he was like, when the kid's like, my dad says I'm not supposed to talk to you strangers, and he's like, oh, that's very wise of your dad. Very wise indeed. I thought that was kind of a nice little line. It's omitted from the 2017 movie. But yeah, overall though, the 2017 movie is vastly superior to the 1990. And not a lot of like leftist horse shit jammed into it. None of that real crap. If anything, I mean, it was kind of, kind of woke, as we like to say, turning the hyper religious asshole dad into a creepy pedophile dad. That was a bit of an interesting thing. Somebody says, I never thought clowns were scary. I've never gotten that trope. Well, see, the thing is, clowns aren't inherently scary. Clowns are something that's very easy to make scary. When you have something innocent and kind of distorted, how should I put it? Not distorted, but like kind of cartoonish, it's very easy to make it creepy. Like, I mean, a merry-go-round isn't scary. You know what I mean? But if I just distort it just a slightly bit and maybe make the merry-go-round music playing just a little too slow or something, then yeah, you get something that's pretty scary. You get something that has a real creep factor to it. Same with like old-timey dolls and stuff like that. They're easy to make creepy. The 1990s version's problem was that they thought just clowns were inherently creepy. Somebody says in the chat, horror movies are K-type, you said. Is this movie K-type? I mean, I definitely wouldn't say it's R-type. Aside from the fact that there's just an existential threat that the kids just accept has to be dealt with. That's really the most inherently K-type part of it. The kids realize this is not something we can just ignore. It has to be dealt with. We got to go kill it. And yeah, dealing with the fact that there are real threats out there, and confronting them head on is just inherently more K-type. They don't try to reason with it. They don't try to, we're going to go kill it. In fact, the second time they confront it, it was almost stupid the first time. There's a fucking haunted house in it. There's just literally a haunted house. There's this old abandoned house that's built over the well. And the way this drainage system works, everything kind of comes to that well and then heads out to like the main big sewer area. So that well is kind of one of his hubs, and he's all over this house. That house is sort of one of his main areas. So they're gonna like storm in that house and go get him, and like a few of them wait outside and a few of them go in after him. It doesn't go well. They get out of there, but barely. Like the one kid's arm is broken and shit like that. The one kid's kind of sliced up. They barely get out of there. And then the second time, like they're not fucking around. They're all taking weapons and shit. Like the one kid works at the black kid. He works for his dad, who's like a butcher, and like he takes the bolt guns that they they kill the animals with. Like he takes that and shit. Like they're not fucking around. They're just like, no, we're gonna kill this fucking thing. You know, they actually go in prepared and thinking it through, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna kill this thing. There's a scene in there where like the older brother of the kid that was taken at the beginning, that got his arm bit off. You know, he's just sort of standing there with his arm missing, like, you know, you have to help me, you have to bring me back. And the brother has this, you know, heartfelt moment where he's like, you know, I'd give anything to have you back, Georgie. And then he just points the gun right at his head and goes, but you're not Georgie. And, you know, shoots the bolt right in its head, and then it kind of shape shifts into the clown. Somebody says, Bechtloff, have you seen or heard about the movie Mother? All I've heard about it really is a train wreck. It's a train wreck, but I don't have any details about it. So I couldn't really tell you how or why. But I have heard it's a spectacular train wreck. I almost want to rent it when it's out on DVD. I'm not one for going to the movies right now just because I don't like that assigned seating bullshit all of them have. Let's see. Tomorrow, and I might even stream tomorrow night to announce it. But tomorrow I'm going to have a better idea. If I get this job I'm interviewing at, I'll have a better idea of the schedule going forward. Because as I mentioned last night, I might be not doing the Saturday stream anymore. That might just be going to a different night, is what it boils down to. The big weekday stream. Let's see. Somebody says, to some people, clowns are inherently scary. Yeah, I don't get it. The one kid in the movie is actually like afraid of clowns. But yeah, I don't really get it. I don't think they're inherently scary. I think they're very easy to make creepy. But I don't think they're just inherently creepy. They're more just inherently annoying. Bechtloff, did you see Arini's stream with John Steele? I did not. I watched like the beginning of it. I didn't really watch the part with John Steele. So yeah, I don't know. I know Arini basically had to toss him. From what I understand, Steele was kind of derailing it, or you know, trying to yank it onto some other topic Steele wanted to talk about. Which I mean, he's known to do. Yeah. Somebody talking about the book It. Yes, there's a child orgy. But yeah, the kids in the book are like 11 from what I fucking understand. I mean, that's really, you know, that's I mean, some kids are, you know, have the old puberty fairy kicking in by 11, but a lot of them don't. So yeah, that's creepy ass shit there, King. Let's see. What else we got? Let's see. Somebody says about Mother, it was such a train wreck. Even the movie with Amy Schumer, literally called Trainwreck, was less of a train wreck. Let's see. Kids having an orgy is inherently creepy. Yeah, no shit. 11-year-old boys all running a train on an 11-year-old girl is inherently creepy. Though in all fairness, Stephen King looks a little bit of like a creeper. You know, they say never judge a book by its cover, but a lot of times you can. And I mean, he always plays that one, you know, hyper-religious, you know, asshole character in there. It's like the mom and Carrie and shit like that. And again, I know there's people like that. There's plenty of people like that. I mean, shit, there might be a few in my fucking audience. But, you know, just beating that horse all the time gets annoying. like we get it. You know, you had a religious relative you didn't like. I get it. Yeah. You don't want to be. I mean, when you write like 87. Well, again, I haven't read the book, but I believe from what I've heard, the TV movie series is a little bit more faithful to the book, and I know that's true of other adaptations. Like for example, The Shining. The Shining is actually a pretty good book, but the TV movie that's starring the guy from Wings is way more faithful than the Jack Nicholson movie. But the Jack Nicholson movie is better because a lot of times it pays to change things in a movie. I think that it's probably the same thing with It. And the thing about the TV movie, at least, I mean, you talk about the Stephen King cliches. I mean, they're all present and accounted for. At least based off of the TV movie, it felt like you fed a bunch of Stephen King novels into some sort of novel writing AI, and it pumped that out. So in the book, somebody is saying Beverly has sex with all of them to maintain group unity. Well, I guess that's one way of doing it. damn, man. So she literally took some for the team. Can't even say took one. She took like 6. Let's see, Bechtloff, have you noticed the growing anti-Christian slant in media lately? In comics, Iceman fights Christian purifiers Christian purists called the Purifiers, the movie Mother, etc. Again, I don't know what the movie Mother's about. I mean, I wouldn't say lately. I mean, you know, that's been a thing for a while, hasn't it? And again, I don't object to it all the time. You know, I mean, let's be real here. You know, sometimes we Christians have that criticism coming. But yeah, it's, you know, the same people who do that, you know, wouldn't have the balls to criticize Islam, for example. You know, Marvel is a perfect example. Yeah, they'll criticize those evil Christians. Meanwhile, they're trying to whitewash Islam. They're trying to whitewash their sins away with their fucking Durka Miss Marvel. So yeah, it's hypocritical shit. He says sodomancy is sex magic. Yeah, that's how they defeat the thing in the book, I guess. But yeah, I'm not always bothered by it. I mean, you know, some depictions of it I kind of think are spot on once in a while. You know, I mean, Ned Flanders is a funny, endearing character because there's a lot of evangelicals that are kind of over sanitized pussies like that. You know, Peter's dad in Family Guy is a very funny, enduring character of a bitter old angry Irish Catholic. Because yeah, there's a lot of them. I don't mind it. It's just I don't inherently mind it. I'm not like, you dare not make fun of this group I'm a part. Like, no, it's, you know, you gotta have a sense of humor about it. I just call out the fact that they're pussies who won't do it to say Muslims. Let's see. I mean, hell, there was an interesting. You talk comics and like Christian. There was a character called the Crusader in Marvel Comics. It was this villain who like found this magic sword that he was like a hyper religious Christian, and he thought it was from God, and he was going to use it to destroy all the evil pagan stuff. Like he tried to kill Thor and tried to kill like Doctor Strange and stuff like that. And I mean, and this was in the 80s, though. This was at the height of, the influence of guys like Pat Robertson and Jerry Falwell and all. So it made sense to have a villain like that at that time. It was actually rather topical and kind of on point. Now, if Marvel still had balls, or if they ever had balls, they would do a character now that's some sort of SJW type fucking villain, but they don't. They're actually run by those people, sadly. Let's see. So he says, Mother is about God and man forsaking Mother Earth / nature. I heard from the Daily Wire it's better if you make Lauren's character Mother Earth into Satan. Okay, yeah, I don't. I mean, I'm not going to go fucking see a Jennifer Lawrence movie in the first place and expect to not be disappointed. I mean, okay, I saw Passenger, but I saw that was a Chris Pratt movie that had Jennifer Lawrence in it. Yeah, I'm not going to go see her starring fucking Vehicle and expect it to be good. Let's see. So Bechtloff, what are your initial thoughts on the Ragnarok movie and the Justice League movie? Have you heard the JLA movie has a hidden seventh hero not shown yet, other than Superman? Well, I mean, I guess maybe that's Green Lantern. Maybe Warner Brothers is just afraid to show Green Lantern because the movie didn't even do that bad. The movie made money, and it had decent reviews at the time. It's just somehow it's been this accepted notion that it sucks. I don't have any interest in Justice League. I don't have any interest in it. I mean, I'll probably see it. I don't know if I'll see it in a theater, but I don't really have a lot of interest in it. It looks terrible. Thor 3 looks pretty good, actually. I think Thor Ragnarok looks pretty good. I actually saw an extended trailer of it right before it, and more stuff in it and all, and yeah, looks solid. I mean, hell, I don't even think Thor 2 is that bad. Like, Argent was on here once and was like, oh, it's the worst mainstream movie I've ever seen. I'm like, I don't understand how you think that at all. But then again, Argent didn't even like Logan. Let's see. Thor 3 will be better than the previous two. Justice League will be better than DOJ, but not by much. DOJ. The fuck's DOJ? Batman vs. Superman was worse than Thor 2. Oh, much worse. Much worse. Thor 1, I think, is actually pretty good. I really like the comedic aspects of it. A lot of that is actually either inspired by, at times, kind of lifted right from the Incredible Hulk TV movie that was guest starring Thor back in the, I guess, early 80s. Maybe it was late 70s. Which, by the way, that is actually a fucking fantastic TV movie if you've never seen it. It was the Trial of the Incredible Hulk was the one that was guest starring Daredevil. Return of the Incredible Hulk, I think, was the one guest starring Thor, and it's pretty damn good. Dawn of Justice. Okay, so it was Batman v Superman. I see what you're saying there. I keep forgetting they even had the subtitle. Now, I will say that Thor 2 is an extremely forgettable movie. I mean, I'm hard-pressed to even remember much about it other than, like, Jane Foster's assistants throwing shoes and keys into the dimensional portals. What the hell's her name? Kat Dennings or whatever, that big-titted chick that was Jane Foster's assistant. She's my favorite parts of Thor 1 and 2. She really is. She's fucking hilarious in those movies. Let's see. Somebody says, would Batman versus Superman better than Lego Batman? I haven't seen Lego Batman, but from everything I've heard, Lego Batman's better. Batman was funny as hell in the Lego movie. Let's see. Oh, gotta go to bed soon. I do have to get up early. That interview's at 9. Somebody says, same Bechtloff, if only Two Broke Girls was good. I guess talking about Kat Dennings in those movies. Yeah, Two Broke Girls is rough. I mean, Kat Dennings is a good comedic actress, but that show's terrible. Hey, Beckloff, which 90s Marvel or DC cartoons were your favorite? Well, I mean, for 90s cartoons, I mean, Batman is absolutely phenomenal. It's one of the greatest cartoons ever made. The 90s Superman's really good. 90s Spider-Man, fantastic. 90s X-Men is pretty good, and I'm not even much of an X-Men fan. 90s Fantastic Four, it had like, I think, 3 seasons or 2 seasons or something like, but like the last season or 2 of it is actually pretty decent, but the first season is ass. The 90s Iron Man was ass. There was a 90s Silver Surfer, but I haven't seen it in ages. I can't remember how that was. Batman Beyond was pretty decent. There was I want to say it was 99. It was Spider-Man Unlimited and Avengers. There was an Avengers cartoon back then, but both of them were terrible. Although the costume in Spider-Man Unlimited was pretty boss. For instance, 90s X-Men cartoon hasn't aged well. It's still all right. X-Men Evolution is pretty damn good, though. That came out in the early 2000s. And my roommate and I loved watching that. And Cartoon Network was rerunning them for a while there. About a year after they had first premiered. What else was there? Static Shock, I think, was in the 90s. It was decent. There was a lot of other ones based off like shitty image ones, like I think Wildcats and Savage Dragon and shithead cartoons. But I never saw any of them. Wolverine and the X-Men was a great animated series. Yeah, it was pretty solid. Again, not a huge X-Men fan, but decent. But yeah, easily Batman's the best one. Probably Superman is the second best. After that, I'd say Spider-Man. Somebody says, my suspension of disbelief was broken with X-Men Evolution when I see Logan riding a motorcycle with a helmet. Well, maybe he just didn't want to get a ticket, I mean, could be as simple as that. The Tick. I never cared for the cartoon Tick. I actually kind of like the live action one with Patrick Warburton. And like the one guy who's playing like Batmanuel, which I think wasn't even from I don't even think that exact character was from the book. But I never was a huge Tick guy to begin with. Somebody says, what's better, Teen Titans or Sailor Moon? I don't know. That's quite the race to the bottom. I mean, I guess in a pinch you could jerk off to Sailor Moon, so I guess that in that sense it at least serves some purpose. So I'm going to go with that. Let's see. X-Men Evolution was decent. There was actually going to be a Spider-Man episode of X-Men Evolution. Like there was one episode where it was like we see Captain America when like Wolverine's remembering being in World War II. And there was going to be an episode where they went to some high school and like, because like all the X-Men are in high school in that cartoon, which isn't nearly as bad as it sounds. And like there was going to be an episode where they're playing some other high school, and it turns out to be the high school where Peter Parker's going to, and they just encounter Spider-Man. They think he's a mutant, but he's really not, and they have a little team up. They had like a script written for this, and then got told, oh yeah, you can't go ahead with that because of some sort of rights issues. Like Sony was in development of a possible cartoon. Sony said no because Sony had the movie rights, and then they also ended up doing an animated cartoon afterwards. There was a Spider-Man animated cartoon right after the first movie on MTV, which was, I mean, it was actually damn good. It was kind of written at like a PG-13 level, which is odd for superhero cartoons, especially at the time. But it only lasted a season because someone at MTV wanted to kill it. I don't know why. They never reran it throughout the week. They buried it at like 10:30 on Friday. But it was pretty good, and it was a computer-generated cartoon. The guy who played Doogie Howser did the voice of Peter Parker. Lisa Loeb did the voice of Mary Jane. There were a few other notable guest stars, like Rob Zombie did the voice of Doc Connors in one episode. All in all, though, really good cartoon. The villains in it were pretty damn weak. There were a lot of Spider-Man villains they weren't allowed to use, and they ended up making up some really lame ones for the show. Basically, though, the show was pretty good. It ended on a cliffhanger that was never resolved, which is kind of a shame. But really, it just had one flaw, but it was kind of a fatal flaw. You know, the lack of good villains in it. Let's see. Wasn't the villain in Sailor Moon actually a tranny? That's news to me. I don't know. I never really watched that. Let's see. We're talking about the anime. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know a lot about anime, guys. I can't really help you there. You know, you and your goop tunes. What are your thoughts on Wolverine and the X-Men? It's good. It just, maybe if I was an X-Men fan, I'd have gotten more out of it. But like, I remember when I used to do the comic stand at the flea market, and they still do this. My buddies that still run it. We had a little TV set up there, and we just constantly be playing superhero cartoons or superhero movies or just other nerd shit. And we would play that a lot. Like, we found it at Target kind of cheap, like the first season. So I watched a lot of it that way, and it's okay. I mean, it's nothing to write home about, but if you were an X-Men fan, you'd probably get more out of it. Let's see. Am I breaking up? Doing a robot voice? I just said breaking up. Well, hang on. One of these days, I'm just going to keep going like this. All right, I'm back. That should fix it. So he says, Bechtloff, I was listening to Captain Cummings today, and I heard that Miles Morales was made because some black comedian had a fit that he couldn't be Spider-Man in a movie. Thoughts? I literally talked about that last night. I actually went through that. Yes, Miles Morales was created because Danny Glover was upset that, or not Danny Glover, Donald Glover was upset that he wasn't allowed to be Spider-Man in the 2012 reboot. Let's see. Somebody says his robot is Styx. I don't really know what that means. Bechtloff is secretly a sentinel. Yeah, mutant detected. That's what happens. That's why I go robot voice. You know, there's a mutant that walks by my house to go kill it. Damn muties. Let's see. But yeah, Donald Glover, sorry, said it again. had a little pissy fit, and that basically Bendis made that character just as an Olive Garden, as an Olive Garden to him. No, it's an Olive Branch. It's an Olive Garden to him. It's late. I may or may not have had a few drinks. Let's see. So he says, "Oh shit, maybe it was you then." Yeah, you might have been just listening to me then. I don't know. Maybe Captain Cummings is listening to me. I don't know. If he is, he ought to come on the show. Let's see. Anything else going on in the chat? I should probably wrap this up soon. I do got to get to bed. I got to get up early for that damn interview. I mean, early for me. You know, I'm living a neat lifestyle. I don't get up in the AM basically anymore unless I have to. So he says the Emmys was a fucking disgrace. Yeah, I heard it was horrendously bad. Well, Donald Glover was in there whining about how that's kind of what got me started on him about how, like, you know, Trump made blacks the most oppressed ever. And it's like, I wish I was in the audience, like, raise my hand and go, I'm sorry, how? How did he do that exactly? He says, Bechtloff, you should really get your comic off the ground. Marvel's shitting the bed. Yeah, I'll look into doing that. It's hard pressed to. I kind of co-created it with somebody, so I'm not sure if he's willing to hop back into it, and if not, you know, I'd see if I can get another artist to hop onto it. But I mean, it might make money down the line, but it would start as a passion project. So I'd have to find somebody essentially willing to initially work for free, because I wouldn't be making any money off of it to pay him on it. So the only thing that crashed harder than their jokes was their ratings. Yeah, I didn't watch it at all. I mean, I did hear parts of Trump's speech at the UN, and I liked it, and I had some concerns. And I haven't had a chance to listen to the whole thing, but there's a certain level of strength and nationalistic language in it that I really like. I like that he called out Venezuela on the fucking socialism. You know, it's like their problem isn't that socialism has been implemented poorly. Their problem is socialism has been implemented faithfully. So I like that, and but it's just, it was a bit too much of W in it all for my taste. It was a bit too much of police in the world in my taste. Now, I say a bit, you know, I think it's justified going after North Korea, and I don't think it has the same potential to be like you go into Iraq and it becomes, what do you do with it, you know, and we're stuck there forever, which was the neocons' point. But North Korea actually is a threat. It's firing missiles all over the place. It's actually threatening us, unlike Saddam Hussein, who was never a threat to us. And if you topple the leadership there, you can, at least in theory, just hand it over to South Korea and get the hell out of there. So yeah, I have concerns about it, but overall, I thought it was a good speech. So he says, blacks are oppressed, says the black man on stage in $1,000 tux. Yeah, no shit. You know, motherfucker can trade lifestyles with me. He can trade lives with me. I'm white as the driven snow. You want to trade with me, buddy? You want me to take on your fucking oppression of being paid gobs and gobs of money to be mildly funny? I mean, I sit here every night nearly, and I'm mildly funny, and I only get a few shekels, you know? Which, by the way, folks, send me some shekels. I need some shekels. Because I'm way funnier than fucking Donald Glover. Um, at least 6 million shekels a day. Yes, that's what I need. Is Donnie Glover the son of Danny Glover? I don't think so, but I don't know. I really don't know. I couldn't tell you. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. You know, there's a lot of nepotism goes on in Tinseltown. Um, so he says no, he's not, but he's just as irrelevant and racist. Well, you know, black people can't be racist because racism is is oppression plus power. Even though that's not what the actual definition of racism is, if you look in a fucking dictionary, that's the definition we decided. You know. Well, that's funny there, liberals. Well, I've decided white people can't have power because I just decided the definition of power is I don't know, something only Asians can have. How about that? Like I just decided that the definition means power is something only Asians can have. So it doesn't matter if I actually have power. I don't because this new definition I pulled out of my ass means I don't. Just just like you decided to, you're just going to change the definition of racism to suit your bullshit needs. Yeah. Let's see. It's whatever definition fucks white people over the most. Well, I think I'm gonna wrap this up. It's about all I got in me for tonight, and I do need to get to bed because I got shit to do in the morning. So, if you enjoy the show, you know, like, comment, subscribe. That's all very helpful. And you know, check out the Twitter, the Gab, for as long as Gab continues to exist, and the Facebook, the Bechtloff on all those places. And down below, you see the tip jar there where you can send me some shekels, and I need some shekels. Oh, and if you want to sponsor a live stream, like what I did with the Thunderbolts thing and what I'm doing with it, I haven't really hammered home a price, but basically, it's going to be about $10 an hour, as it were. That includes prep time. So, you know, somebody wanted me to do a review of a bunch of movies, and I told them, you know, you're gonna have to calculate those run times and make it about $10 an hour. And he's like, oh, I don't know if I have that much. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. But I think $10 an hour is fair. So basically, I'm charging $10 an hour on including the stream and any kind of prep time. That said, though, that's a little flexible. If it's kind of also depends on the topic, you know. But yeah, that's about all I got for tonight, folks. I want to thank you all for listening, and Bechtloff out.